and welcome back to Old School. Today, we're going to be all over the place. We're going to be in the physical, the mental, emotional, and spiritual. And our teacher is Adasa Troy, author of Draw Near, How Painful Experiences Become the Birthplace of Blessings. She is an international Christian author, devotional writer, poet, and translator, holding a master's in international relations. On her blog, onthewaybg.com, she encourages her readers in the journey of faith and a deeper walk with God. She writes in English and Bulgarian on different topics of Christian living and spiritual growth and provides biblical guidance and encouragement. She loves diving into the Word of God and enjoys reading, traveling, and spending time with her family and friends. Her blog is one of the top 75 faith blogs rankings on FeedSpot. Her first poetry book in Bulgarian was published in the summer of 2020. Her poems in English are featured on Thoughts About God and Poetry Host. Let's welcome to class, Adasa.
Hello, thanks so much for the invitation. I'm so glad to be here on this podcast with you and to share my story and insights and experience and the lessons I learned with your listeners. Thanks so much for this invitation.
Well, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. We belong to a lot of different groups on social media, and It's so funny because I've had several people on the podcast that I now feel, to a degree, that I'm almost even better friends with or know even more about than some people who are here with skin on near me.
Yes, this may happen, yes.
And maybe if my daughter and I end up back in Europe with on a mission trip, well, Bulgaria is not that far away. We may just have to meet up and have a meal together or something.
Yeah, this would be great. Yes, this would be fantastic. I have so many friends in the United States, but actually I didn't meet nobody in person because so rarely somebody comes to Europe. And me, I haven't been also to the USA. So, but let's see. Who knows?
We'll have to make sure that we both have that on our tour agenda. Should we make it out? Okay, so I don't really, as I've told you before, to have an agenda here. What I do is have our teacher for class talk about their story and how it relates to like finding spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical health and well-being and maintaining that. And so I like to lead with a little bit of your story, and then we can talk about the book that you have coming out. So if you would like to share with us your story.
Yes, my story is quite interesting, quite complicated, with a lot of mini stories there. A lot of things happened in my life. But I started very early on a journey of finding spiritual healing and peace, let's say first like this. Because Bulgaria, I'm from Bulgaria, as you mentioned, and at this time, when I was a child and teenager, Bulgaria was a communist country, and it was very difficult to get information about such topics, mental health, emotional health, faith, or such stuff. And I lived in a difficult, dysfunctional family, and I had really a lot of problems. And I remember that short before my 17, I was suffering quite from depression and even suffered with suicidal thoughts because I was searching for meaning and purpose in life. And what actually made me most depressive at this time, besides my dysfunctional family, of course, was that somehow I saw a big discrepancy between what I was and what I wanted to be, and that it was not possible for me to change. So, for example, I wanted to be good, but I was not able to be good. Or I wanted to love the way I thought love is, but I was not able to do this. And somehow this set me on a search and led to one ultimatum to the universe, let's call it at this time, ultimatum to the universe, because I just for months and months prayed this prayer: if there is God, or God, if there is, you are real, if you exist, please show yourself to me, because if there is no God, if there is nothing higher, so to say, to live for, then I see no meaning in this life. I simply don't want to live. And this was really for months. And it was shortly before my 17th birthday. And then in a series of coincidences and the meetings with some of my classmates, I was led to an evangelical church where for first time I heard the gospel, because before that it was not possible to hear the gospel. And I simply responded immediately. So obviously my heart was prepared. I responded immediately, and I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. And suddenly my life had meaning and purpose. So I was set on a journey of spiritual transformation. And this was, so to say, the first milestone in my story, my testimony.
Awesome. That's so awesome. And no coincidences, all divine appointments. He runs after us.
Absolutely. I was found. I was searching for him, but actually he found me.
Yeah.
So always does so. And then another story in my life, which was also kind of miraculous and no coincidence, was the meeting with my future husband, and so to say, this love story, or the falling in love. Because let me say, I never believe in love at the first glance. So this was for me nonsense. Let's say, like, absolute nonsense. And then I was working as a project coordinator in one educational institution. I was writing international projects, and I was preparing a project meeting. And he was sent from a partner organization from Austria. And he needed to prepare presentations and send it to me via email. So I opened the presentation, see the photo of the presentation and the name. And I say, and I hear in my head my name and his family name together. And I say, what the nonsense? I say to myself, what the nonsense? What is this? This is, no, I dismissed it immediately. But it happened like this, that he came, and in a framework of a week, because the project meeting was exactly 7 days, so approximately a week. In a week, we both fell in love with each other, so immediately. And then we started a distance relationship for 2.5 years. And after that, we married, and I moved to Austria, and I lived there for 15 years. And this was the first miracle, and this was not coincidence that God brought him in my life, because with him, I really went through, let's say, the most intensive period of my spiritual formation and growth with God. Because although we both loved each other very much, we obviously were on different pages regarding wanting children and want to become parents. I wanted to become a mother, he not so much. And when we started finally to make attempts to do this, it was too late, so to say. And I went 5 years or 6 years of very intense medical procedures, a lot of appointments, painful procedures and everything, to no avail, so no result. But this led also to very intense anxiety and panic attacks. I never in my life before experienced such anxiety and panic attacks. And this was, however, the top of the iceberg. But all this pain opened a door for very, very transformative and intensive work of the Lord in my heart, in the heart of my husband, and also in our relationship, because somehow the pain reached not only the top of the iceberg, but really reached deeper. So the Lord could really deal with very deep issues, also from the past traumas, unprocessed things, also from the childhood and whatever. So for first time in this very, very special period in my life, I paid attention to mental and emotional health. And I actually realized that my soul, my heart, although I was a believer and walking with the Lord, that my soul was so fragmentized and disintegrated from past traumas. As I said, I had difficult childhood that were not healed. And there was unprocessed memories, unforgiveness, difficult relationships, and a lot of other issues. Also, a lot of mindsets that were not helpful. And somehow it turned out at the end that these panic attacks and this severe suffering and anxiety, including the infertility struggle, were really those that led to healing, to transformation, not just the end of this anxiety, because I overcame the anxiety. I'm absolutely free from panic attacks. I never again had panic attacks in my life anymore. Yes, praise the Lord. But this led actually to a deeper, deeper emotional and mental healing. So as if my soul was once again rebuilt by the Lord. So it was cleaned, so the debris were cleaned, then once again rebuilt and reshaped. And finally, somehow I more and more became my true self, because I found that I have lost the touch of who I was really. And this panic attack showed this, and also this anxiety. Who was I? What do I want? What are my desires? What is my personality? I have completely lost this. And then the Lord led me to himself, but also to myself, and finally also to my husband and to all other main relationships in my life. So this was really a very powerful and very, very intense period of spiritual formation. And then I saw, and then late in my life too, that really suffering and pain, when they're really put in the hands of the Lord, surrendered, they can really lead to spiritual growth, to healing, and they can produce a lot of peace and a lot of confidence and a lot of wholeness if we allow the work, this painful work, because it's a work. Healing is a work.
Well, and especially the way you phrased that was perfect, that we're supposed to surrender and hand those things over to our Creator, to our King, to our Savior. And a lot of times I think we sit and we just ask for a lot of stuff, or we ask to be pulled out of a lot of stuff.
Yes.
But the idea of not only asking him, what am I supposed to get through this, but I'm going to hand you all of this as well. I'm going to take my hands off of it. I'm going to lay it at your feet, and let's, please do a work in me for us for me to recover from this.
Exactly. And I need to only to add, because this is very important. For first time during this period, I learned what it means to deal, to handle, and to struggle with the so-called controlling desires. Because this is very, very important issue. Let's say the religious term for this is idols. But what are controlling desires? This is something, it's something good. You may want something good, like in my case, a child or children, or a good marriage or whatever, or a good partner. But sometimes when we don't get it and we focus on this and it grabs all our, or 90% of our mental and emotional energy, and we think all the time about this is no good. That starts to control our life and to control our energy and takes the place of the Lord. And this was completely, this happened in my life. And the counterfeit of this is, of course, submitting, surrendering, including our so-called rights. It's quite painful. This is quite painful. but it is the right way, because this is the only way that can lead to true peace, to really mental peace, emotional peace. And this is what I learned mainly in this.
Well, when and it's a part of my book as well, is through my marriage, I ended in divorce, and I have a little chapter or a little section talking about how I had to lay down my right to understand why that happened, or lay down my right to know, try to understand what he's, why this happened, or why he did what he did. Because the reality is I wasn't getting any truth in normal conversation, let alone thinking that if I asked a bunch of questions, I was going to get any truth from there. I already had the truth. And that was that my marriage was now over. This stuff had happened. I forgave him. And so I laid down my rights to any of that stuff. And the moment, it's like the moment it was like I was Atlas with this big world on my shoulders, and now it was gone. And that had to be one of, if I pinpoint about a half a dozen points in my lifetime
Yes.
over a lot of abuse where, man, what a layer of peace. And I love how you talk about your soul getting put back together, because people talk so much and use the terminology about being broken or, whatever. And I do love that analogy of in Japan, when they put back a vase, they'll use gold,
Yes.
and all of that sounds lovely. But
Yes.
I think truthfully, I believe more like you were saying is that he takes it and he puts it back together whole, because he was the one that created it in the first place.
Yes.
And the same with our
Absolutely.
heart.
Yes.
Perfect. And so then you said you have one more layer
Yes.
to your story.
One more layer, very unexpected, but the same principles that I shared now, we can transform also to this last layer. And this is that very unexpectedly in 2020, I lost my husband. He passed away. This was no way to ever think about, let's say, my worst fears materialized, because I never thought this is possible in such a phase in my life, especially when we were both healed and our marriage was thriving. And so to say, we were expecting a good, bright future together, and a long future together. And suddenly this. So I was completely thrown in the darkness, in complete chaos, and I didn't know what to think, what to do, how to live, how to operate, and how to exist. It was really painful, and this was followed by a painful transition, difficult transition too, because I felt strongly led by the Lord to leave Austria, where I lived for 15 years, and to come back home to Bulgaria, to my family of origin and friends and everything, because of a lot of reasons, but I really felt this call. And this all happened a couple of months after the death of my husband. And you can imagine what such a transition after 15 years in one country, moving to another and starting a completely new life, how exhausting and how difficult this is. And of course, this started something again in my life, some aspects of suffering that I never thought I would experience in this intensity. This was, of course, grief, and to deal with grief, or I have a good phrase for this, that I was in the chains of grief, because you really feel a prisoner. So the grief takes so much energy of you, especially in the first months or the first years, even, let's say. It occupies your life. I actually had the feeling that I'm splitted. So I'm physically in this, here I'm living, but part of me is connected, so in memories with my husband, and my mind is going over all these memories and all these moments with him, and I'm here and there, so simultaneously, let's say.
Well, yeah, and you put all that together, the top 5 stressful things that can happen to somebody in a period of time, and you lost him, and then having to pack up and really kind of leave every single semblance of your life with him there while you do this. And so that I can't even imagine. I can't imagine how you have to call on the Lord's strength for that. It drives me crazy when people try to say things like, "Oh, I know what you're going through," and I clearly do not. I think, the way it would seem to me is that because you came out of a communist country and out of that regime and out of that period of time to now be the one the Lord sends back, like he had Joseph and Mary moving around, and then now back to Bethlehem, back to Galilee, so you can be the one that transforms the world in your area in Bulgaria. I think that's an awesome. I assume at some juncture some of that may have been comforting, although you still had your grief to deal with.
Yes, for sure. God has plans for me here. Otherwise, he would not have sent me here. This is my place for the moment. I already came to accept this. although in the beginning I was fighting against this. I followed it, but I was fighting, I was struggling. I didn't want to be here. Actually, I didn't want to be nowhere. I just wanted to escape, but I wanted to escape from the pain. There was no physical place where I could escape. This was the truth. And the next, which is very important, I want to share about this grief is that for first time I struggled with another thing, and this was, although very short, but it was important, and this was the disillusionment in faith. Because, okay, I thought I was a strong believer. I thought after having all these things with the Lord together, all these past experiences, that nothing would shake my faith, so to say. But no, there was something that, and this was this, because I didn't understand. And of course, I was asking a lot the why question. No, I didn't get an answer to the why question, I need to say. this is okay. I accepted this too. We need to accept this. Sometimes the Lord gives us glimpses of some fragments of why something can happen or happened, but in most cases, no. The answer is no. We don't need the why, but we need really to trust him, to follow him, and once again to surrender this grief, surrender the pain, and let him work whatever he wants to work inside and outside in the circumstances. After this phase of disillusionment in faith, the truth is that my foundation of faith became stronger, really. Because once again, this was the same process. The foundation was a little bit broken or shaken from the blow, but then once again put together, stronger, more resilient. When I choose the path of once again to trust the Lord, when I don't understand, when I'm in pain, when I see nothing, only darkness, no light in front, no future. Because that thing is this, that when people encounter death or loss to death, we lose our future also. Because the anticipated future together, all plans, visions, whatever, everything is cut down. There is nothing in front.
Well, I know that's a very hard,
Yes.
hard story for you, but I think I see it in your writing and in how you pour out your relationship with Jesus, and I can't imagine that it doesn't have such a lovely impact around the world. Everything that you have walked through, and how, nobody's going to have puppies and rainbows just because we accept Christ. We are going to walk through those things, and those things
Yes.
are the things that build our character and build our relationship with him.
Absolutely.
And you are being so obedient. I'm not putting you on a pedestal or thinking you're perfect, but just that it's awesome that you're able to see. And I think he wants us with each passing one to see quicker,
Yes.
maybe even, that this is how we're going to walk this out. This is how it's going to be better. So thank you so much for that, because it's so tender to my heart, everybody's story. That's the first thing I want to talk to people about, because that's what my hope. My first book is going to be a memoir, and it is my.
Oh, wonderful.
I
I
it.
wrote two memoirs, so I can really relate to you. Memoir writing is really one of a kind. It's such a vulnerable thing to do this.
I've had people tell me that, my writing coaches and stuff, that it's very, originally it was like a book that had the story and the healing, and then they were like, no, this needs to be two, where this is the memoir and you're alluding to how you came out of it, but then over here we're going to get, where the rubber meets the road. So I just love that I love hearing other people's stories. I love understanding that as I prepare my book proposals, they tell you never to say that your audience is everyone.
No.
But the fact of the matter is for this kind of trauma and this kind of abuse, it is everyone, because if you haven't been in it, you're married to or in a relationship with somebody who has, or you're a professional that helps people who have. So, I mean, it kind of can, but I get you're not supposed to do that. So you have a book coming out. Do you have an artwork or something to show, or maybe something I can put in the podcast notes too, or right now just it's coming out?
Yes, I have a link, actually 2 links on my blog where in the page My Books, and there is the book with the 2 links. One is the link to pre-order. Already it's available to pre-order at Color Press Publishing. And the other link is the invitation to join my launch team. And also on my Facebook and Instagram accounts, in my pinned posts, there is also the information about the book and the links to join the launch
To
team.
do the launch.
So everything will happen there.
Well, and launches are so awesome. I've had so many guests on who I've been on either their launch team or
Yes.
I have Sarah Geringer is a
Yes, very good
manager, and she manages launch teams, and she does a fabulous
Yeah.
job. And
Absolutely.
she will, reach out, and I tell her if any of them want to come on the podcast too, it'd be fun. I mean, unless it's like such a specificity. I mean, I don't mind having anybody on, to tell you the truth, because everybody has a story in one of those areas of healing,
Yes,
or
yes,
or even if it's just about maintaining our health there.
yes.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about Draw Near.
Yes, Draw Near. The concept of this book was conceived in 2021 because, I was thinking, how can I express all this that happened to me in a helpful way and really show a good perspective or helpful perspective how to deal with our losses, or better say, how to interpret our suffering in a biblical way. So let's use this word. Even this was one of my subtitles of the book, which I dropped then. But the main idea was this, really, how to interpret our suffering. Because the main identifier for all suffering, for all painful, traumatic experiences is loss or myriad of losses. And I think the book will be very helpful in this manner, that it will help us identify the concrete losses in 13 painful experiences. For example, anxiety, sadness, grief, loneliness, betrayal, rejection, just to name a few of that. But then also to identify the gains. Of course, the gains are mainly spiritual, but not only, but the spiritual are the main core, so to say. And also to see that the gains actually, I have lists in this book made for each experience, that the gains actually outweigh the losses if, of course, we draw near to God in this process of interpreting and experiences our suffering, and let Him heal us, shape us, and transform us. So this is the main idea and concept of the book. And I think it will help also people to who attempted, because I also struggled with this temptation in the beginning, who attempted to pull away from Him when they experience very intensive pain. The first is really to pull away or to give Him our backs and don't want to have anything to do, because why and so. But to overcome this temptation and really to make this step forward towards Him, because this is the right step which brings purpose and meaning to the whole stuff.
Well, and we are so quick to, and even with healthy relationships with the Lord, I mean, Peter denied Him 3 times, and He was walking with Him. So we do want to understand that why out of the gate a lot of times, and depending on the depth of the hurt. I mean, smaller, minor hurts, the rejection of maybe like a friend or things like that, they're a little easier to kind of like stay at the surface, but the deeper types of rejections, it does become hard. It becomes, we start asking the questions like, why did you, let me meet him and marry him and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's awesome. I think that's a great drill down. And a lot of times people don't think of what they're going through as having to answer a loss and understanding that they need to grieve it. Like, not only in my divorce did I have the loss of my marriage, but I had the loss of a future that I thought I was going to have in that relationship. I find myself sometimes now when I have to do the stuff around the house that were like the man's thing to do. I'm like, I don't like being the man of the house anymore.
Yeah, I have a similar problem.
So I'm just like, okay. Well, that
Um,
sounds awesome. And I will definitely have the links for both the pre-order of your book and for being on the
a
launch
lot.
team. I got the link. I thought I pre-ordered and stuff, but if I haven't, I have all of that. I have so many podcast recordings this week that I'm just
Yes.
pulling my hair out. In fact, I have one in like 10 minutes after we're done.
Oh, okay, okay.
But
Then
anyway, this has
should be
been
fast.
really awesome. Your story and your strength and your whole spirit that, I mean, you're not acting like it's just some sort of like whitewashed away and all of that. You still have to walk it every day. Every day you have to get up, and I'm sure there are things that remind you of the
Of
losses and
course,
remind you of things. It's
always.
just like forgiveness. It has to be doled out. It's
Yes,
an action.
yes.
It's not a one-time transaction. So this was so awesome that you would share this with me. Now, I end every podcast with this question.
Okay.
I ask for this nugget. And I realize the older my guest is, and you're young, but the older my guests are, it can get harder. But what is the one thing you wish that you had known sooner, or that someone had told you sooner?
The one thing, okay, maybe this is just the insight or revelation I had recently. I mean, not that I didn't know this theoretically, but now it became really internalized and experientially I embrace this. And this nugget, this wisdom is the following. When we suffer or when some things, bad things happen to us, very often it's not because of us and about us. It's not about us. On the contrary, very often it's for the others or about the others, means the church, the saints, building up the church for God's glory and for our own eternal glory.
Absolutely. And that, I think that he is so willing, if each time we go through something, we don't get that, he will show us again.
Yes, and again and again and again. Yeah. But
He's
this
a
really
very
gives a
patient
lot of
teacher.
meaning. Yes, yes, yes. He's absolutely the most patient. Yeah.
Well, that is awesome. That's a great nugget. And I think that very many people, well, everyone, 100% are going to go through something. So if they can hang
Yes,
on to
100%.
that thought process, I've seen a lot of memes on and listened to a lot of podcasts recently where a lot of people are saying things like, very often when another human being says something horrible to you or does something horrible to you, it is not about you. It says more about what's going on inside of them.
Yes,
And so
absolutely.
that externalizing kind of what you said too, is that
Yes,
sometimes what we're being taught or shaped for is a ministry that's outside of us.
exactly. Exactly.
Perfect. Well, I have had the best time, hon, and I am so glad we
Me
were able
too.
to connect. And I will let you know when your episode is going to release and get you all the info. And if all of you would like to connect with Adasa, we'll have the links down below. And she has a lovely blog. You would definitely want to go subscribe. My links are below too if you want to reach out for anything. And I highly suggest, even if you're not a writer, get on a book launch team because it's so much fun to promote something that's really that good for you. So if you get the opportunity to do that, thank you so much. If you go to your local platform and find me and you're willing to rate, review, like, subscribe, download, I'd love all of that, and I'd love to engage with you as well. So I thank you all for coming to class today, and class dismissed.